All right, what's up, everybody? How we doing? I'm just gonna give everybody a little bit to trickle in here, but yeah, as you probably saw on Twitter or on wherever you saw this, just gonna be doing a Q&A, answering any questions that you guys have about OddsJam, whether it's positive EV or arbitrage or whatever it may be. And yeah, so any questions you have, just put them in the chat, and I will. My camera's here. My screen where the chat is here. So if you see me looking over, that's what I'm doing. But any questions you have, like I said, just put them in the chat. Happy to help. And if we don't get any questions, A, that would be pretty embarrassing. But B, what we will end up doing is just giving you a tutorial of everybody in here on how to use OddsJam. Starting with the positive EV tool, because that's obviously the biggest moneymaker. That's how I've made the majority of my profits using OddsJam is from the EV tool. Hey Andy, Matt here. Using OddsJam, I have had as soon as this pops up, as soon as it'll show you that I've made $30,000 sports betting with OddsJam. It's been a little rough go of it recently, as you can see here, but that unfortunately is the way things go. We have really high highs and we have low lows because that's sports betting. But thanks to OddsJam, I have made $30,500 sports betting. This is a pretty loaded question. It depends what you're looking for. Like we have a bunch of different tools. I would say for the positive EV page specifically, my best advice is to use the recommended filters. Like there's this little button here. I use them starting, sorry, I'm reading the questions as I'm doing this. I use them when I'm using OddsJam, even though like I've been using the product forever, I still use the recommended filters. And then from there, what you want to do is like, whenever you hover over a play, you can click your mouse and it pulls up odds from every sportsbook. Like you can do this for every single play, right? And then it pulls up odds. What you want to do is and I do this literally every time, before locking in a play, what I do is I compare the odds of the positive EV play, which in this case is the plus 142 at FanDuel. And you just compare that to every other book, right? You want to see where every other sports book is pricing a play at. So FanDuel has this at plus 142. Bet Online is the closest at plus 121. Every other book, plus 118, plus 110, plus 115, plus 105. That's amazing. So long story short, this is an incredible bet. What you want to do is you want to bet on outliers. You want to make sure that the odds of the bet you're placing is truly an outlier compared to the odds of the rest of the sports books. Now, Daniel, I will answer your question right after this. I get a lot of questions about like, how do I know if it's truly an outlier or not, which is a great question. What you want to do is click View Event Page and open it up in a new tab. So what that does, as soon as this loads, is, it just pulls up the market. But what you can do is this little button. Oh, I didn't realize I wasn't sharing my screen. That's embarrassing. Someone should have told me. Give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry. I thought I was sharing my screen this whole time. So this is the play I was talking about. It's plus 142 odds at FanDuel. Every other book, we see plus 121, plus 118, plus 110, plus 115, plus 105. Sorry about that. This is the outlier betting opportunity that I was referring to. And they're the recommended filters button that I was talking about as well. But anyways, what you want to do, click View Event Page, open it up in a new tab, and then it pulls up the screen that we have here. And this is what we're looking for. So what you want to do is, in the screen, it just shows literally like where all the sports books are pricing it. It's pretty much the same thing you see here. But what you can do is click this button here that says Show No Vig Odds. And it does exactly what it sounds like. It removes the VIG from every book and where they have it priced, right? We see these are the fair odds. So what you want to do from here is compare the odds that you placed. So the actual odds of the bet you placed, which we locked them in at plus 142, and then compare those to the no vig odds of every other book. Plus 121, plus 127, plus 124, plus 129, and then Pinnacle, which is the sharpest book in the world. We give them the heaviest weight, plus 124. That's amazing. This is an absolute hammer. This is a really, really good bet that I absolutely 100% recommend locking in. So if you're watching this and you want to hammer a bet, hammer Bayern Munich over 3.5 team total. But that is how, I guess the last thing I'll say is the recommended bet size. So should you put money on a slip if it says it's good EV? Yes, but I recommend doing a little bit more digging like I just showed you. And in terms of recommended bet size, in terms of what to bet, I recommend using the recommended bet size. The number you see here, like 190, it's a formula. Of course, the odds changed here. And that's another lesson. Move quickly. So hopefully you're able to lock this in. But if odds do change, then we just see right here, odds of the bet have changed. But the recommended bet size is pulled from a formula called the Kelly criterion method. What it does is it takes into account your bankroll, which you can put in your settings. And then it looks at the odds that you're betting. It looks at the win percentage, and the win percentage is based on the no vig odds that you see here. And then it spits out a literal number of what you should bet. The reason why this says 190 versus 192 is just it makes sense to just round up or down. So that's all that's doing. But that's how you use Octane. That's how you identify. That's how you make $30,000 sports betting. What widths should you be using? It's a good question. So depending on when you watch a video, you will hear different answers. The reason why is because we used to give market width a pretty decent, like a pretty heavy amount of importance. Let me refresh this just so we're looking at up-to-date odds. We used to care about market width a lot. But now that we have the recommended filters, I don't look at market width at all anymore, personally. If something shows up on the recommended filters, A, that's a good sign that it's a good bet. And B, I do the digging. I guess the odds are back up to 140. So you can still hit this if you want to. And then B, what I do is the outlier thing. So if it's on the recommended filters and it's truly an outlier to every other bet, right, with the vig removed, then I don't really look at the market width at all. Market width isn't as important with the recommended filters. So I can believe that you've heard several things on it, because depending on when you watch a video, you hear me say that I base my unit size based on market width. So things change. I get that there's confusion about that. But yeah, things change. And as of right now, May 12th, 2023, I almost never look at market width. I care more about if it's an outlier, and I care more about if it beats the no vig odds of every other book. And that's pretty much it from there. So no more questions in the chat. So I could just go through and just kind of give like a tutorial of what I'm looking for. But please, any questions that you guys have, put them in the chat, because the more helpful that this is, or I should say, the more questions you ask, the more helpful that this is going to be for people. I don't know, Daniel, when you popped in, but that's literally what I was just describing. When I speak of outliers, I speak of comparing the no vig odds, comparing the odds of the bet we placed to the no vig odds of every other book. That is what I mean of speaking of outliers. Like, okay, we bet this at technically it's plus 140 now if I refresh. But like our bet is at plus 140. That is the odds of the bet we're placing. Every other book, plus 121, plus 127, plus 124, plus 129, plus 124. Like this is true. This is clearly an outlier. Like you could even tell just from looking at it here. It's clearly an outlier. But if you're ever unsure, then you want to click View Event Page, open it in a new tab, click Show No Vig Odds, and then compare the odds of the bet you're placing to every other book. Next question about limits. Unfortunately, there's like nothing we can do there. It just is what it is. I will say not every book has heavy limits. So it's only detrimental on a couple books, and you guys know what the bad ones are. Yeah, I mean, watch your unit size. Yes, but also you'll still get limited even with a lower unit size. Like we have, like, it's just, I wish I could give people a better answer, but there's really nothing we can do here. Like even if you're doing everything, whatever, you're going to get limited. Like Matt says, watch your unit size and use multiple books. Yeah, but if there's a positive EV play on a book, then you're going to want to, sorry, I'm reading the questions. If there's a positive EV play on a book, that's the book you're going to want to use. So really there's like, yeah, if there are odds, like, let's see if there's an example, like, of course there's not going to be one. Yeah, I mean, there's no example, but like in a situation like this, where like all books have the same odds, then yeah, you can use different ones, but there's only one positive EV play. There's only so much you can do. Yeah, I mean, that's the whole purpose of the recommended bet size, is it like rounds it down. Like, sure, it might make it so you don't get limited today. You instead get limited in 3 days, but it's not going to go from not getting limited to get limited. It's really unavoidable. Like if you're placing a lot of positive EV bets, the book's going to find out that you're consistently beating their closing line, and they're going to limit you. Like I said, it's not detrimental because some sports books are worse than others at limiting. And like I said, we all know who those books are, but there's really, I get the questions because it's frustrating and I wish I had a better answer, but I really don't. When I go to the arbitrage page and I put in the calc, it shows negative returns. I would need to see what you're talking about, because like the arbitrage page, if you look at like the percent, like these are all positive. Like you're never going to get a negative return on a arbitrage. So my guess is that you're either looking at a different page or that something is wrong, but like this is positive. If you like go through, we need to see what you're looking at, because like these are all, every single arbitrage page is going to be, yeah. I mean, it sounds like a bug. I have no idea. I would need to see it for myself to give an answer. But yeah, like arbitrage, they're all positive. So either you're on a different page, either it's a glitch, or maybe something's wrong on the calculator. I don't know, but that's definitely not right. Can you run through an example of working with a bonus bet? I got a deposit match deposit match. Okay. So when you're using a deposit match, you want to use the low holds tool. Because if I'm understanding the bonus that you have, it's basically like the sportsbook will give you $500 will give you up to $500 if you risk money, is my understanding of what that bonus is. If it's different, let me know in the comments. But what you want to do with a bonus bet is you want to use the low holds page, because a low hold is essentially a 0% return on the market, right? It's a 0% hold, minus 145, plus 145. But because you have a deposit match, you place $500 or you place however much money you need to risk to get that 500, and you get a free $500. So what you do is you want to place a bet on both sides. Like let's pretend you place $100 on FanDuel. On the other side, you place $68.97, and you break even on the individual bet itself, but you get the deposit match of $500. So you're basically getting a free $500. So that's how you want to use a deposit match. You want to use the low holds page, and you just want to, whatever amount you need to risk on the book, you put that in here. It'll tell you what to bet on the other side, and then you get the $500 off a zero return. And if like you can filter specifically for the books, like if you have it on DraftKings, you can filter for DraftKings. It'll give you a situation. It's not always going to be a 0%. Like there's sometimes you see there's a positive where this will be a negative return. You see, like, I don't know if this is what Ivan was talking about. If you're looking at the low hold page, but if it's not 0%, then it will be negative. So I would just try to find an example where you can get it for 0%. All right. When live betting on EV, there are times when I see absurdly high EVs, upwards of 100%, when all books will generally show the same odds, i.e. plus 110, where Pinnacle will be minus 295. Is this then an error? Honestly, I have no idea. I would probably guess that if Pinnacle is I don't know, so Pinnacle is the sharpest book in the world, and live betting is such a crapshoot compared to pregame, obviously, because sportsbooks are constantly changing their odds. If it were me personally and Pinnacle was the outlier, and every other, like the exact scenario in which you have described, where all the books have it at plus 110 and Pinnacle is the only one at minus 295, I would probably avoid that one personally. The whole goal of positive EV betting is to take examples of situations like this, where the bet we're placing is the outlier, not the sharp sportsbook. So yeah, I'd probably avoid situations like that. Can you give a proper explanation of the OddsJam screen and how it compares to the positive EV page? So yes, good question. They are completely different. So the positive EV page provides mathematically profitable bets, right? OddsJam calculates the no vig odds while also scanning lines from every major sportsbook, from every major market, from every major everything, and spits out situations where you're getting a mathematically profitable bet. So you don't need to you want to do the looking into outliers and stuff, but every single play here has some value. The OddsJam screen requires a little bit of digging on your end because all the OddsJam screen does, and I'm not saying one is better than the other, I'm just highlighting the difference. The OddsJam screen provides data. It provides, here's every single sportsbook and where they're pricing odds at. Now, what you want to do is identify, find situations where you can find some sort of line discrepancy. So we can go through the point spread for the NBA games tonight as soon as this loads. So we see Miami Heat are best offered at -6. New York Knicks are best offered at +6.5. So we already know that okay, there's an outlier here somewhere. The half point difference for a mainline point spread is massive. Same thing here, -6.5 and +7.5. So what you want to do when you're using the screen, and I don't know, let me make sure Pinnacle is showing up because I didn't see it. Give me 1 second. Oh, I don't know why I had it unchecked. Anyways, let me go back. So now Pinnacle will show up. Anyways, so when you're using the screen, you want to identify line discrepancies. Okay, find examples where there's some book has something priced essentially. So it's similar to the positive EV page in which we're finding discrepancies. The difference is the screen requires a little bit more digging. One isn't better than the other. It just depends on personal preference. For the screen, we give you the data and you can use it to find discrepancies. For positive EV betting, we're still giving you the data, but these are inherently going to be good. But an example of a good bet on the screen is the Sixers +7.5. Because we see a majority of books -6.5, -6.5, -7. And then here, +7.5. That's an outlier, +7.5. -7, -7, -7, -7, and then another -6.5. So two books have it at 7.5. But one of them, we see the odds here, -115. Fox Bet has this at -110. Now, you see the Sixers jacket. The Sixers pain me a lot, but in terms of data and math and value, this is a good bet on the Sixers +7.5. Again, the reason why every other book has it either at 7 or 6.5. So the 7.5 represents some value. And then what you want to do when you're using the screen, you want to identify the sharp sports books and where they have it priced. Now, Pinnacle still isn't showing up here. Maybe it takes a little bit, but we see sharp sportsbook 7, sharp sportsbook 7. And not only do they have it at +7, but look at the difference in odds. They have the Sixers side of it at -115. They have the Celtics side of it at -105. So they're favoring the Sixers. And what I mean by that is they have them at the more expensive number. So the sharp sportsbook is favoring the Sixers, telling you they think it's more likely than not that the Sixers cover 7 points. So they're charging more money for it. And we're still getting them at 7.5. And then we see Circa at 7 as well. So this is an example of a play that might show up on the EV page, or it might not, because we don't know where the other sportsbooks price it, but we know that this +7.5 is a value. Where I really like using the screen, where I found the best, most luck, whatever you want to call it, is for player props that have higher numbers, like points, rebounds, assists. You could find examples here, and we can see if we can find one. Here, most books have it at 29.5. FanDuel 30.5. PointsBet 30.5. So here's an example of where literally every other book 29.5, 29.5, 29.5. This wouldn't show up on the EV page because sportsbooks generally don't have alternate lines for player props like this. But this would be a good play on this points bet because they have it at minus 120. And we see like Sharp Sportsbook has it at 29.5 and favors the under. We see other sports books favor the under at a full point below. So like Bam Adebayo under 30.5 points, rebounds, assists would be a good play that you found using the screen that would not show up on the EV page. So hopefully that was helpful in terms of like the difference between the EV page and the screen. You'll find the biggest differences personally, at least I have, with player props, and specifically player props that have higher numbers, because then you can really find some discrepancies. It's also good. The Fantasy Optimizer is another screen that's good for that, because you can click this button that says show line differences, and it does exactly what I just highlighted on the screen. It shows examples where there is a line difference between multiple sports books. So like for this one, and this is a strikeout prop, Prize Picks has it at 5. Every other book has it at 5.5. So like that 5 to 5.5 number, that's like a huge deal with how low these numbers are. So that's kind of the example. Like the Fantasy Optimizer will also show you line differences and also will give it to you on one screen. So you don't need to do as much digging as you would on the other screen that we're using here. Again, it's really not an example of like one tool is better than the other. It's just difference in preference in what you're looking for. When you were trying to move fast, how was your desktop set up to hit lines? Do you use multiple monitors? So I don't use multiple. I use multiple monitors when I'm working. When I'm hammering bets, I don't. What I do is, I have so many tabs open. I have the tabs that you see here. So I have the 3 main tools that I have all the main tools that I use to find profitable bets, which is more than these 2, but I move tabs out. And then I have the sports books all on one tab as well. So when I'm going through the page, I say, oh, here's a good book on Caesar, or here's a good bet on Caesars. I immediately go to Caesars and lock it in. So I go to Caesars, I sign in, and I hammer it. That's how I place bets the fastest. Like I have it all on one monitor, but I have all the tabs open. So like I literally leave this open. Like I don't close out of this. Yes, the screen is raw data. That's correct. When you go to the EV page, is there something you're looking for on that page that will confirm in your mind to place that bet? I don't 100% understand the question. Is there when I go to the EV page, I'm just clicking through plays and I'm trying to find outliers. And I'm using the recommended filters. So I explained at the very beginning what it means to be an outlier. It's like, this I would guess is a glitch. If I went to Fox Bet, I'll guess this is a glitch. If it's not a glitch, this is an amazing bet. It's minus 110 at Fox Bet. Every other book, the closest one is minus 135. So I don't necessarily confirm, like, I don't know if you mean like, I don't have any preconceived notions that I'm looking to confirm, if that's what you're asking. I go in with as blank a slate as possible. And even if a bet feels gross, like that Sixers one, I'm a Sixers fan. That felt gross. I will trust the data over what feels gross 100 times out of 100. But in terms of like what will confirm that it's a good bet, it's this right here. Let me zoom in a little bit. It's confirming that it's an outlier. The minus 110 versus every other book. Like that's crazy. This is something that I would absolutely lock in. And that's what I'm looking for. Did you ever watch that video I had shared with you and Alex? Okay, not a question for me. Question for Andy. Harper hitting a home run. If you watched my home run video, you would know that the answer to that, if you ask me, is yes. So I do think he's going to go yard tonight. In your opinion, what are some underrated, underutilized pages, tools on OddsJam? Oh no, my zipper broke on this jacket. I know people care a lot about that. I just noticed. Anyways, okay, we're good. Honestly, I think that I'll probably say the low hold page. Like I find a lot of awesome bets specifically using the low holds page because there are certain markets that won't show up on the positive EV page because the positive EV page only shows examples where there's a sharp sports book to compare to, a Pinnacle, some sort of sharp sports book will only show up on the positive EV page. But there are certain markets where I've had a ton of success, specifically on the low holds page, that might not show up on the positive EV page. Some examples of that, like these long shot odds, like the recommended filters, caps your odds at like plus 200, something like that, because or else it would just, like, if you turn this off, it would just get over drowned with these insane long shot odds, right? But the low holds page will have some really good ones, and it doesn't quite overload your feed either. Like plus 600 on FanDuel, look at every other book, plus 350, plus 400, plus 349, plus 400. Now this might show up on the EV page because of Pinnacle, but if it's a one-way market, then it wouldn't show up on the EV page. So there are like certain small little flaws like that. Not flaws is a bad way to term it, but there's no way of calculating the no vig odds for a one-way market. So it might not show up on the EV page. There's also certain markets that I really like. Let's see if I can find an example that don't have a sharp, no, there's no example of it. There's like first 3 inning doesn't have odds from a sharp sports book, but I've had a lot of success betting. Of course, there are no examples of it now that I'm talking through it, but like first inning total runs, like first 3 inning doesn't have odds from a sharp book, but it does. You can find some really good value between the sports books. Another reason why I like the low hold page is you can find low holds directly to sharp sports books. Like we just added Circa Vegas. If you want to bet positive EV plays specifically to Circa Vegas, you could just put them in the low holds page and bet the opposite. Like here's an example of the Heat Knicks, another good play, under 205. It's a direct low hold to Circa. So if you compare the odds to Circa, plus 110, Circa has it for 50-50. That's a good bet. First inning total runs. It's a direct low hold to Circa. So you can also use it because the positive EV page looks at a bunch of sharp sports books and spits out odds, which I'm not saying is bad by any means. But the low hold market, if you just want to look at a specific sports book, you can. Like here's a bunch. Like I would take this yes run first inning bet because it's a low hold directly to Circa. It's 0% hold. So the low hold page is the answer to the question. When you bet home run props, is it a gut feeling or do you have data on Oddsjam that will back that up? It is not a gut feeling. It is if you turn the filters off and you unselect and you don't have anything for maximum odds, here are a bunch of home run props. You can Control F home run. Here are a bunch of home run props. So if I'm looking for a home run in a game, I'll literally just do this. Jock Peterson plus 420 hit a home run, plus 15% EV, plus 420 light up on FanDuel. Every other book, we see plus 340, plus 330, plus like this is a good play. This is a good home run bet. All right, 2 more questions. Then I got to hop in 2 minutes. So let's hope these are quick. On the odds page, you can see the average and best bet. What are those averages based on? Are they based on the books I've selected or are they based on other books as well? They are based on all odds we have, the average odds. So to my knowledge, they're based on not just books you have selected, but all of the books. To be honest with you, I don't look at the average odds a ton. Not that it's not helpful, but I care about the sharp sports books. So if like average odds of sharp sports books is basically the no vig odds here. And that's the most important thing. Like, I don't really care as much what a non-sharp sports book has. I care about the sharp ones. So yeah, that's that with the average odds. And then last question, do you avoid multiple player prop bets on the same game due to possible correlation? That's a really good question. To be honest with you, I don't know what the correct answer to that is. Me personally, that answer is yes, I do. So like, let's see if we can find an example. Like Josh Hart under rebounds. I don't know. This isn't there's not a great example of this, but yes, I will. I personally will, because you don't want to have I try to avoid having too much exposure on one individual game because you never know what's going to happen. I think technically the best in terms of if you want to take all emotion and thought out of it, technically the best way to go about that would be to place everything on the EV page and just let the chips fall as they lie. Because let's pretend I take this Josh Hart bet, and then let's pretend that there's another bet on here that's another Knicks player under rebounds. So those two are negatively correlated. If one's going to go under, it's not as likely that the other player will go under. Well, let's say I take this Josh Hart one and then I avoid the other one. Well, what if this Josh Hart one hits? Or excuse me, sorry. What if this Josh Hart one loses and the other one hits? I will have avoided a bet solely because I already placed this one. So it's a really good question. There's no textbook correct answer. To be honest with you, it's dependent on personal preference and what your risk tolerance level is. I would say the correct answer in terms of like maximizing your profit would probably be to not avoid player prop bets in the same game, because at the end of the day, we don't know which one is going to hit, right? If we could correctly predict which ones we're going to hit, we would just bet those, but we don't. So the best way to maximize your profit would be to take all of them and then just trust the value, which is a little scary because, like, for the Knicks game, there's 8. I mean, I guess these are a lot total. A lot of these are totals, but there's 18 bets on the Knicks game. Personally, I don't necessarily know if I want 18 bets on the same exact game. So it's a tough answer that's, again, dependent on your personal preference. If you want, like, you ask me, do I avoid player prop bets that are negatively correlated? Yes, I do. I don't necessarily know if that's the correct answer, but I don't want a ton of exposure in the same game. But cool. All right. No, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I appreciate everybody for asking the questions. Daniel, Matthew, Scott, Andy, Undefined Bob. Thank you for hopping in. Thank you for asking questions. If I missed anything, you can hit me up at email, matthew@oddsjam.com. You can hit me up on my Twitter handle. You can comment on my YouTube, whatever it may be. But thank you guys for joining in truly. And yeah, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.